Gary Mani Mounfield's death at the age of 63 sent a tremor through the music world that felt far bigger than a headline or a passing announcement. It felt like a piece of musical history had quietly slipped away, leaving behind an echo that would be felt not just by fans of the Stone Roses, but by anyone who understood what Mani meant to the DNA of British music. The Stone Roses didn't simply lose a bassist. They lost a brother, a heartbeat, a presence that had carried them through the highs and lows of a turbulent, transformative era in rock history. His passing came suddenly, devastating those closest to him just as much as those who admired him from afar. The news first reached the public through a heartbreaking message posted on Facebook by his brother, Greg. The words were simple, direct, and unbearably heavy. "It is with the heaviest of hearts that I have to announce the sad passing of my brother, Gary Mani Mounfield, RIP." For a moment, those who saw the post paused, reading it back again just to ensure they weren't misinterpreting it. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel possible. Moments later in the comment section, Greg added something even more poignant: "Reunited with his beautiful wife Imelda." Those words cut even deeper because they reminded people of the pain Mani had already endured, the heartbreak he had carried since losing his wife to cancer just 2 years earlier. For those who knew him personally, that loss had hollowed out a part of him that could never be completely healed. Family sources revealed that Gary had been at his home in Heaton Moor, Stockport when tragedy struck. He collapsed following a seizure, and despite an ambulance being called urgently, he could not be revived. The suddenness of it made everything even more painful. There had been no warning, no long illness, no gradual decline that might have prepared the family. One moment he was there living, planning, working, remembering, and the next moment he was gone. For fans, it was shocking. For his family, it was a nightmare. Shortly after Greg's announcement, the Stone Roses took to their official X page to share a moving tribute. They posted a throwback picture of Gary on stage, gripping his bass with that distinctive posture and calm confidence that had defined him for decades. Alongside the photo came the words, "Rip our wonderful brother Mani, the greatest bass player and friend we could ever have wished for." There was something raw and unpolished about that statement. Something that made it clear the band members were writing from a place of real pain. This wasn't just public messaging. This was grief. And beneath those few words lay decades of memories: the rehearsals, the shows, the inside jokes, the arguments, the reconciliations, the creative breakthroughs, and the moments that only a band of brothers can truly understand. Ian Brown, the Stone Roses frontman and one of the most iconic voices of his generation, took to his own page to post a simple tribute: "Rest in peace, Mani." For anyone who has followed the band, those 5 words carried far more weight than their brevity suggested. Mani and Ian had shared stages, hotel rooms, recording studios, and emotional journeys that shaped who they became as artists. Ian also reshared a fan's post, one that included a photo from 2016, when the fan had nervously approached Mani, Rini, and Ian in a bar. The fan remembered them as warm, friendly, and disarmingly down to earth. "They couldn't have been nicer," the fan wrote. "No airs and graces. Just funny, warm, and charming. Thank you for the music, Mani, Ribex." There was something striking about that memory: how Mani could be part of one of the most influential rock bands in British history, and yet meet a stranger in a casual bar and treat them with the same friendliness, as if they were an old mate. That was who Mani was, but the loss was not felt only inside the Stone Roses. Sources told the Daily Mail that Noel and Liam Gallagher, 2 titanic figures of British music who had admired Mani not just as a musician but as a person, were informed of his passing just hours before the public announcement. The Gallagher brothers were said to be absolutely heartbroken. The Gallaghers are not men known for easily showing emotion or vulnerability. They are known for swagger, confidence, bold statements, and the occasional explosive feud. But when it came to Mani, their reactions revealed something softer, something deeply personal. Mani had crossed paths with them countless times over the decades, influencing, inspiring, and standing alongside them in a way that very few musicians ever had. Both Gallaghers understood what Mani meant to the Manchester music scene. They understood that a pillar of that world had fallen. The weight of Mani's story becomes even heavier when remembering the loss of his beloved wife Imelda, who died from cancer in 2022. They had twin sons together, and those who knew them often spoke about how deeply Mani loved his wife, and how shattered he was by her illness. Imelda's diagnosis came 3 years before her passing, giving the family time to fight, hope, pray, and cling to whatever optimism they could find. But even with their strength and the support of those around them, cancer is a relentless enemy. When she passed, Mani's world changed forever. Friends noticed the shift in him: the quiet moments, the reflective pauses, the the grief that stayed with him like a shadow. He continued making public appearances, continued engaging in projects, continued honoring the world of music that had shaped him. But the loss of Imelda was something he carried everywhere. Perhaps one of the most haunting details about Mani's passing is the timing. Only 6 days earlier, he had announced an intimate conversation tour on the band's website. This tour was meant to be something special, not a performance of songs, but a sharing of stories, memories, and behind-the-scenes insights that fans had been eager to hear for years. It would have been a chance for him to talk openly about the moments that shaped his life and career. The highs, the lows, the chaotic studio sessions, the iconic performances, the turning points in the band's history. He was expected to travel across various venues in the UK between September 2026 and June 2027, allowing fans to hear firsthand the history of one of the most revolutionary bands of their generation. The announcement had excited fans. Many immediately started planning trips, imagining the stories Mani would share. They wanted to hear about Spike Island, the legendary 1990 event that became a cultural time capsule of the Madcaster era. They wanted to hear about the band's reunion shows, the stadium tours, the second coming of the Stone Roses after years of silence and uncertainty. They wanted to hear about the madness, the creativity, the brotherhood, and the heartbreak that came with being part of a band that helped define a musical era. The tour's description had been filled with nostalgia and anticipation. He'll remember Fool's Gold, Wembley Stadium, Ali Pali, court cases, bucket hats, Adidas, Screamadelica, and the second coming. It's what the world is waiting for. Those words now feel like a bittersweet echo, something that promised a future that will never come. A gift to fans that remains unopened. A series of stories that will never be told by the man who lived them. To fully grasp the magnitude of this loss, one must understand what Mani meant to music. He wasn't just a bassist who played notes. He was the backbone of the Stone Roses sound, the anchor that held the psychedelic swirl of guitars and drums together. His style was smooth yet punchy, understated yet vital. It made people move without realizing why. For many musicians, Mani wasn't just an influence, he was the blueprint. His bass lines became part of the sonic identity of the Madcaster movement, the era that defined an entire generation of British youth culture. His death feels like the closing of a chapter in music history. Not because the music stops, but because one of the men who helped write that chapter is no longer here to reflect on it, laugh about it, explain it, or relive it with fans who cherished every note. And that's what makes the timing so heartbreaking. Mani was ready to step into a new chapter of his life, one where he would no longer be on the road with a band, no longer in the pressures of performance, but in a space where he could simply talk, share, reflect, and embrace his legacy. He had so much to say. He had lived through so much. When people think of Mani, they remember a man with a gentle spirit, a sharp sense of humor, and a humility that stood in contrast to the chaotic world of rock music. He never tried to act larger than life. He didn't need to. His music spoke for him. The fans who met him remember kindness. The musicians who worked with him remember loyalty. The bandmates who loved him remember a brotherhood that only intensified with time, even through disagreements and long silences.